A further point that Paletta makes is one big obstruction to participatory democracy is if we allow each member of the group to dogmatically base his or her contribution to discussion on conscience, on a sense of his or her belief being self-evident. There has to be an openness to the correction of error in dialogue. Dialogue means fallibility. It means I could be wrong. And rationality does not mean knowing the truth. For certain, rationality means being open to the correction of error through dialogue, where you don't identify with great fixation on your present beliefs, so that if they are attacked, you are attacked. As a rational person, you would identify with your ability to learn, your ability to make mistakes and to correct error. And so in participatory democracy, the personal conscience of each member should not be considered sacred by that member. Conscience can lead us into error. Yes?
What's, in that situation, where's truth to be derived from?
Where's what to be derived from?
Well, it sounds like you're saying that you carry on an ongoing dialogue, and you should remain open to questioning your own truth or belief or conscience, and hearing other viewpoints, etc. What would be the basis for truth then? In other words, I mean, if we want to accomplish something, it's going to do us best to be on the same page at some point and to converge on a single truth or reality.
Well,
how are we going to do that if there's no basis for truth?
First, there are many people who do not believe in objective truth. They believe that thinking so makes it so for you on the strength of your conviction that it is so.
Wouldn't that be their objective truth? Haven't they just contradicted themselves in saying that?
Well, if in answer to a question, any meaningful question, in the academic world at least, there is a consensus that there is only one objective truth. And if we disagree on what the answer is to a meaningful question, one of us, but possibly both of us, might be wrong. And so what is truth? True knowledge is knowledge that fixes the facts. When you say it is raining, it is true that it is raining, if and only if, as a matter of fact, it is raining. There is a correspondence between the statement that's being said and the fact of the matter. Now the question then is how to get to truth. Traditionally, two methods have been used. The one method Paletta criticizes, which is the appeal to self-evidence, to the inner infallible conviction of your own private insight. And since the appeal to self-evidence has let us down too many times in the past, it was once self-evident to many people that the earth was flat, and even in mathematics, there are some statements that for hundreds and even a couple thousand years were thought to be self-evident, and now they've proven to be simply false.
I got a clarification.
So we should never rely on self-evidence as a source of truth. What is the alternative? The only alternative is dialogue. And what kind of dialogue? On an even playing field, and dialogue that is as inclusive as possible. Dialogue will not lead to infallible truth, but dialogue is a method and procedure that means we are on the road towards the objective truth by the elimination of one error after another. We narrow the range of possible true answers. And so that is the beauty of dialogue. Yes?
Well, when I hear self-evidence, I don't have your background in philosophy, but I've studied
it's a common term. Jefferson used it.
Right, and I think the way Jefferson used that and what I picture when I hear the term self-evidence is not a truth that, hey, this is what I believe, therefore it's evidenced by myself. What I picture is, for instance, the truth that there is an objective truth, right? If I put forward that proposition and you say to me, Scott, you're wrong, there is no objective truth, it's inherent in your response that there is. You're making a truth claim to me, so you've admitted to me and trying to contradict me that there is.
Well,
I would look at that and go, the truth is contained within the statement and any refutation, and I consider that a self-evident truth, not because, hey, this is the way I think it is, but because it can't be contradicted without it being accepted that it's true.
Right. I mean, that's a paradox to say there is no objective truth, and that is an objective truth.
It's not a paradox, it's a contradiction.
It's a contradiction.
And it establishes a point of truth or a first principle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
So we agree. We don't have to agree in a coffee house, but in an academic setting, we agree that we are engaged in a collaborative search for the objective truth.
I guess what I would like to express is that I would like to do it in that manner, right? Starting with first principles. We have to accept that we're rational.
Well,
we have to accept that logic exists.
There are no unquestionable first principles. That's what we've learned by rejection of the appeal to self-evidence, or to put it in plain language, self-evidence is obviousness. And there's no greater insult. Have I said this before? I'll say it again. There's no greater insult if you ask a question to somebody, and if the person answers you, dismisses the question and says, it's obvious. Well, that's arrogant, and there is nothing that is truly obvious or not open to discussion, not discussable. These are just lazy certitudes that your ego identified with, and you don't want to talk about it.
Well, I feel worried about just saying that we can base truth or objective reality on what we come up with in a consensus or a dialogue, right?
Well, every consensus can be overturned by a future consensus, but we are on our path because the path to truth in science is through hypothesis or conjecture and refutation. Conjecture and refutation. And that's what dialogue is about. One famous philosopher said that if he had the offer of, on the one hand, total truth about everything, immediately obvious to him, like God the Father in heaven is supposed to have. But if he were offered, on the other hand, an endless search for the truth without ever knowing that he had actually attained the objective truth, he would prefer the adventure of the search. And I don't consider my mind to be godlike, which I would have to do if I believed that I had self-evident knowledge of the truth. I am fallible. That is my philosophy, fallibilism, which is a precondition it's a modest precondition of getting into any dialogue.
So you don't accept that there is a truth. You
There
just
is an objective truth, but I don't think
consensus.
anybody knows it for sure. It's out there to be discovered, and if we're lucky, we will get closer to it by eliminating errors.
Are there some truths that you accept? For instance, that we exist? Would you accept that as a truth?
No.
No?
Descartes said, I exist, and that's absolutely certain. The famous French philosopher, father of modern philosophy. But the reason I don't accept that as an obvious truth is because I'm using certain concepts that may be confusing. Like I'm using the concept of I, and I'm using the concept of exist. Now, many times in the past, when we've analyzed concepts, we've found implicit hiding assumptions or contradictions in our concepts. The notion of an I that has continuous existence from birth to death is really open to question. It is quite possible that only the now exists, and that you exist in the now with false recollections of a past that never was, that you came into existence only in the present, full of false beliefs about whether other people exist, whether the external world exists. You may be hallucinating this class right now. I'm
Do you
saying,
believe that I exist?
Huh?
Do you believe I exist?
I believe it's logically possible that this is a dream, this whole class.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to get back to the real topic of our book.
Okay, I don't want to take you off the
I'm not a
pathway
slave
of
to
the
PowerPoint.
class. I just get questions
So
occasionally.
I'm not going to go through all these slides verbatim, but I think spontaneously we've talked about the main issues. The last two issues of rotating leadership and the issue of in dialogue, in Occupy, for instance, nobody should stand on, this is what I believe, I can believe nothing else. This appeal to personal conscience and infallibility of your conscience. This is what one famous philosopher called conscience was a celestial and divine voice that is infallible. I have two pictures in the PowerPoint of two philosophers who upheld actually the view that conscience is the ultimate source of truth in right and wrong. And their names are attached there. So I'm not, they're in the slides if you're interested. But conscience cannot be the ultimate standard of right and wrong, because if you act on conscience and conscience is not justified by any higher reason, then it's arbitrary and should not be followed. But if conscience is justified, then it's not ultimate. The reasons that justify conscience have greater authority than conscience. So let's pursue the reasons in dialogue. Now, let's get into a next topic here. And in the time that we have left, and as I change into that, it's going to be a briefer slide protection because we have to keep pace here in this class. And you know that there is a first part of your term paper. If you look at the syllabus that is due it's in the syllabus exactly what day it's due, but roughly every 4 weeks you turn in a first draft of the first part of your term paper. In the first part of your term paper, you're going to be writing on past social movements, and if there are lessons to be learned for Occupy from the study of these past movements. Now, I'm going to...
I don't know the exact date.
Please, somebody talk while I get the... respond more to what I've said. Refute me, perhaps, as I switch into a new slide collection. Have I satisfied you, or no?
I guess I don't have any more refutation. I guess it sounds like, I mean, that you established that there's, for instance, there's a logical possibility that I don't exist, but it seems like what you've chosen to do is act as if I do, because you feel that's the best course of action for you?
Well,
is to proceed
one way
like
of
that's
reducing the chance of error is not to say I exist, but to say an active thinking currently exists.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out like how you would use that to make decisions, right? Like you pretty much have to assume that I exist. You have to make quite a few assumptions about truths in the world in order to be happy, right? Have things work out all right?
This gets into a branch of philosophy that we touch upon because we're touching upon dialogue as a route towards the truth, but I should not devote probably more discussion to the theory of knowledge and the theory of truth.
Well, you wanted to fill some time.
One
I'm trying to
famous
help out.
American philosopher said, the truth is what everybody in dialogue who's interested in the truth will agree upon at the end of the history of research. Now, we know that research will never come to an end. It may come to a stopping point where all the experts are in agreement at a certain point in time, like in the 19th century, everybody believed that Newtonian physics was true physics, and then they were surprised that Newtonian physics was overturned by Einsteinian physics. And now, if the famous American philosopher who said that that's what the truth is, what all the truth seekers will agree upon at the end of history, this is only true if we assume that all truth speakers have protected human rights, have especially a protected central human right of freedom of expression. Because if you are living in a dictatorship, or you are starving and depending on a handout for somebody else, we have to be suspicious about the credibility of what you say. Maybe you say is just a carbon copy of what you're ordered to say by people who would penalize you for not saying it. And so human rights are the fundamental preconditions universally of credible dialogue, protecting freedom of expression.